right, we will call this October 6, 2025 meeting of the OJRSA Board of Commissioners meeting to order. We'll look to the invocation of Pledge of Allegiance from Mr. Scott Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, you're a great God. We know you're a great God. We come to you in prayer today, and we hope that you hear our voices. But more importantly, we should understand that maybe we should not be the ones that are speaking to you. Maybe we should be listening to your words and follow your guidance. And we ask that today. Just please open our hearts and our minds and close our mouths and let us do your wishes. Let us hear your grace. Let us hear your guidance on how we should serve each other, serve this community, and serve our citizenry and our friends and family and the world as a whole. And we just ask that you continue to guide us, keep your healing hand on us, and guide over all of our families and those that are feeling sick out there today, Lord, those that are dealing with loved ones that are sick. We just ask you to continue just grace them with your love and guidance and reassurance, and just touch them with that healing hand. And all this we ask in your Son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we will now open public session, receive comments. Anyone from the public wishing to speak? Short timer on this side, want to speak?
No thanks.
Take just a moment, say your last one.
This is it.
Well, we will miss you, and we appreciate your service to our community, Norm.
Yes, sir, we should.
Appreciate that.
I think he's got a check for you.
Yeah. All right, we will proceed on to item number D, approval of the minutes. Consider a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the Commissioners meeting September the 8th, 2025.
Have a motion, have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number E, committee and other meeting reports. First, Reconstitution Committee and Executive Committee meeting of August 14th, 2025. That would be me. That seems like a long time ago for some reason. I had to refresh my memory. I'm going to hit a few highlights. I believe the minutes have been circulated. Mayor Oliver and Councilwoman Dixie Meeks, both from the town of West Union, came to the meeting. They had some questions about the proposed consolidation work that we're doing. I think they, so a lot of their questions were questions that some of the other councils had. Really appreciate them taking the time to come and be with us that day. And a lot of those questions are still to be answered. Catherine Amadon did a review of the master plan recommendations and project cost at pretty good length. I'll refer you to the minutes if you want additional detail there. We also received updates from the city, the county, and the OJRSA regarding support resolutions. Some of those have been passed at that point, some have not. Some simply hadn't had a chance to consider it. We also discussed the draft legislation that would be required for the board to be comprised as it's been proposed. And then Angie Metlin and Joel Jones began talking about considerations to do financial and technical evaluations on the system, so that we would be able to put some kind of parameters around value for that. I'll be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any. If not, I'll present those in the form of a motion for approval. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item, Operation of Planning Committee meeting, September 23rd. Scott Mulder.
Yes, sir. We just a few things we discussed with the chair and committee or our board. First, we changed our meeting date due to Ms. Elgazer's attendance at a conference. Next item up, we looked at our the bids of the CMMS system. that we received 8 separate bids from. Kyle and Chris, with others, served on an evaluation committee. They narrowed the selections down to 3. 2 of those 3 were proposing the same software system for the CMMS. They recommended to us the KCI proposal that included the same type of system as one of the others. They actually had a demo of the system. We talked about, does KCI operate it, provide the system, and then provide support. He, of course, answered accordingly. So we, as a committee, has pushed this forward to the board with a recommendation that we select KCI, which was recommended by staff and the committee that evaluated the proposals. So I believe that is on the agenda for this evening. We also talked about additional SCIP funding that we had left over. We were under budget, if you will, so we had about $750,000 in funds left over. So we wanted to continue with system rehabilitation throughout the collection system, but we needed additional services, I guess contract and project management services for those additional projects and rehabilitation services. So Chris had asked if we would execute an amendment to the agreement with Ardura for their services to go along with the additional system rehabilitation. So committee heard his request and has pushed that forward to the board with our approval as well, to keep Ardura on and amend that contract for the additional work. We also got a report on a SSO. We had a contractor on a job whose bypass pump lost a coupling connection, therefore spilling about 500 gallons or so of sewage. So they reported that, and the contractor apparently responded very, very quickly and was satisfactory to staff. Took care of it right away, but we did go ahead and report that 500 gallons due to that failure. And received, some regulatory updates, but other than that, that was the meeting. So if we have any questions, we'll certainly entertain those. Otherwise, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as submitted.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, well, welcome, Celia.
Yes, apologies.
Just in time to give us your update from Finance Administration Committee.
Trying to time it this right. Yes, September 23rd, the F&A committee did have their monthly meeting. We received updates from Mr. Eleazar, both from the OEP meeting that was held that morning, as well as some of the different projects that were done. It was also mentioned about the item for action today with the Ardura contract. Other committee actions included reviewing the financial statements. We did have a little bit of a discussion on that. Thank you for the information about the user fees. And then the only action item we had was the supplemental budget, which is on the agenda for the board today, and it did have a recommendation of approval. It was a fairly fast meeting, so that pretty much was the total of our meeting. But I'll make a motion to approve those unless anyone has any questions.
All right, we have a motion, is there a second?
So moved.
A second from Josh. Any other discussion or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Moving on to item number F, Secretary Treasurer's Report, Lynn Stevens.
The report's in the packet with the graph on the back. The total combined of all the accounts, including investments, is $12,461,303. The auditor, Jason White, let Chris and I know that he discovered two discrepancies with the Sewer South project. One was a deposit of $46,336 that was actually put into the account, deposited twice into the account by accident. And because it was my error, but due to all these projects going on, and when I get the paperwork, it doesn't specifically say what project it pertains to, and I was getting some conflicting information, so it got deposited wrong twice. He caught that. And then the other thing was a CD, matured after June, and we had done the audit for it before, or by the end of June. So this didn't get caught, and it was deposited or transferred to the projects and contingency account. So basically what we did was we switched it around, transferred them back. So the county is now going to get another refund of the $245,000 CD, less the $46,000 that they were already paid for that they shouldn't have been because it was deposited twice. So they're gonna get that balance as another check. And we're in the process of getting Susan Stamey to update the report that she did for the Sewer South project to reflect this.
Have y'all started work on the audit?
Yeah, they're working on it.
Do you think you'll have it done before the end of this calendar year?
I would say so. I think that it could be November, possibly, because this was the last thing Jason, I think, was waiting on. And just to go in a little bit more with the complexity that I know Lynn has had to deal with, is she mentioned that these funds all go into one account that we receive from EDA and RIA. So the $46,000, I believe, was from the RIA, but we had multiple, we've had the SCIP monies, we've had the feasibility study money, and the Sewer South money all set to go to one account. So I know it's been difficult for her to track that, and even, Susan Stamey, who was the independent accountant on this, she didn't see it either. So Jason was one that noticed it and asked about it. So that was like 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago, we had a call about that.
So the money was already transferred to the proper accounts. It was kind of like a crisscross transfer. And like I said, we'll be getting the difference between the two. And then with all the reconciliations were done through the end of August. I'm still waiting for Susan Stamey to give me reconciliation letters for July and August. And then the last thing on my report is that we have one CD that's maturing on 31st for $245,000 and will be reinvested.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to accept the financial report.
So moved. Second.
First, second, third over here if you need it. Any additional questions for Lynn or Chris? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, nothing under item G, presentation and discussion items. Moving on to item H, action items. Item number 1, authorize the executive director to negotiate and execute a contract with KCI Technologies for computerized maintenance management systems. Chris Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Bronson. So as Mr. Mulder touched on a few moments ago in the OMP committee meeting report, we had done a thorough evaluation. I believe, if I remember correctly, we had a total of 8 respondents to that submittal request, and we narrowed that down to 3, conducted demos with all 3 of them, 2 of which were using the same software system. So KCI, we felt they had the better presentation. They had a person, a staff member that had spent over a decade, if I remember correctly, working for Greenville Water, and she was very familiar with it from the end user standpoint, since she had worked with it on that side of things before she left to go to the consulting world with KCI. So that was the difference we felt and why we're recommending that we do go with KCI. So obviously with that said, myself and staff strongly recommend approval of that to enter into negotiations for a contract with them.
I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the contract on project number 2026-01 with KCI Technologies as recommended by our staff.
I second.
Had a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions for Chris?
Well, it was interesting during the discussion, like Chris said, and Scott as well, that the software was being used by two of the folks that submitted. But what took it over the top, based on, I think what Chris said, was their KCI's commitment to help the end user, these folks here, with any problems, putting the asset numbers into the software, and it just seemed like a better value after hearing your discussion during the OMB meeting.
Any further comments, questions, discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item H2, approve FY 2026 supplemental budget number 1. Chris Elliott.
All right, in your booklet you see under, in my book, it's under tab 5, I'm assuming it's the same in yours, but you see the supplemental budget request number 1. This did go through Finance and Administration Committee, and what this does is address 2 items, one of which was the refund of, how much was it? $1.78 million back to Oconee County. So this took place after the beginning of this fiscal year. And what that was to account for the overpayment. I don't know that I should say overpayment, but the front end payment that we received from Oconee County to cover costs associated with Sewer South before we got the reimbursement grants from EDA and RIA. So we waited till the end of that project, used Susan Stamey as a third-party accountant to go through and sign off or approve that the amount that we had in our books was accurate, and we have already sent that payment to Oconee County. So that captures this. We did that because we captured all the monies we received from them as revenues during the previous, I believe, probably a couple of fiscal years, as long as that project had taken place. And then lastly, the additional $159,000 to allow for up to an additional $750,000 of SCIP funding to be put toward our sewer rehabilitation project that Bionomic is currently working on now. So with that said, we recommend approval of the supplemental budget request number 1.
All right, is there a motion?
So moved.
Have a motion, do we have a second? Second. Any further discussion or questions? Sounds like you guys in the F&A did the bulk of the work there, thank you very much. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number H3, execute amendment to Adura contract for services for additional SCIP-funded collection system rehabilitation as part of the OJRSA project 2024-08. Chris Elliott.
And this is the second item that goes along with that supplemental budget that I mentioned, the $159,000 for Ardura is stated in this agreement to cover the additional up to $750,000 for the SCIP funding. So this will allow for the engineering work to take place as well as any construction observation. The staff, Kyle, myself, we recommend the approval of this. A lot of bang for the buck.
All right, is there a motion?
Chair, I make a motion that we authorize our executive director to execute the amendment agreement with Ardura to continue services for the additional $750,000 for the SCIP funding.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
He was almost there, Scott. Almost. We'll put you down for the third. Yeah. Any further discussion or questions?
There's one, up here at the, Chris, at the top, Oconee Joint Municipal Sewer Authority.
That was, I don't know how that got to be what it was, but Mr. Parrish may remember this. That was one of the names that was considered for our organization. One of the
I've been
probably
here during
20
this date, and I didn't remember that. Okay.
One of probably the 20 names that we had, but
19 of them we can't,
Regional sounds a whole lot better. I think. Thank you.
Did we vote on that, Lynn? I zoned out while
Yes.
they were laughing.
Yes.
Sorry.
Oh, wait a minute.
No, we
No, you
didn't.
didn't vote, you got the,
We
you
got the
got the
motion,
vote.
but we
Yeah,
didn't vote.
Okay, I'm sorry.
sorry.
Because you asked for other questions and
Yeah.
discussions. so
I'm sorry.
There
Yes.
you go.
Thank you, David.
You're
Um,
welcome, sir.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I apologize. Zoning out can be fun, but it can be dangerous when you've got a
Come back,
responsibility.
come back.
Especially when you're driving.
Yeah, but it's not even 5 o'clock yet.
Oh, goodness. Item I, Executive Director's Discussion and Compliance Matters, Chris Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a couple of things under item 1, under this tab. The spill that Mr. Mulder mentioned, well, we had another one by the same contractor.
They might want to buy some new couplings apparently.
Well, this one, if it only it was a coupling, this one was a pump, the actual bypass pump failure this time. So that spill was approximately 2,000 gallons. We estimate that it likely was more than that, but that was how much of it that we noticed and that we can absolutely account for. Again, that was a rehab contractor's bypass pump failure. That happened on September 29th. SCDS was notified. We conducted our normal sampling, and the sample results were very, as far as the creek goes, they were very low, actually a lot lower than what we normally see when we have some type of spill. So, we felt pretty good about that. But then they returned very quickly to the upstream, what we call the ambient level. So, that is, has been taken care of.
Did this spill go into a waterway like the first one?
It did. It went into the Conoro's Creek. It eventually made its way right past us here. The NPDS permit has finally been issued. So this will go into effect on November 1st. And there's a few items on there. I'm not sure if any of you guys saw the draft permit that we did receive, that we provided some public comment on. But if you did, there was a few things in there that I'll speak about now that are significantly different and significant as a relative term in this case from our existing permit. So we have now some requirements associated with aluminum and mercury, both those metals. So we have a monitoring report for both of those items due to reasonable potential, and it has to do with influent coming in at the top of the plant and sampling that's taking place as part of the permit development. So over the past, we typically start about 18 months before the expiration of the permit, if not 2 years. Again, collecting samples is a long process that ramps up to it. So that sampling that we did on the front end of it, there was enough there for them to at least give us a monitoring report requirement. But not only that, they are also requesting that we address these matters through a couple different mechanisms. The first of which is with Allison and our pretreatment program. Either address it through the program itself and or using it in industrial user permits. So there may be some modifications that take place with the industrial user permits for those two parameters. The second one is we have to develop and submit to DES for their approval an aluminum and mercury assessment and minimization plan. So that involves, again, some sampling on our side, and then it'll be from there developing a plan to work with industry, essentially to look at voluntarily reducing their contribution or potential contribution of those materials to the system. The second item
Chris,
is...
I have a question there.
Yes,
Do you
sir.
have the ability to process those metals out?
No, sir. We can settle them out in solids, but we cannot treat. We're a biological plant, so we don't have a way of removing metals from our process, and that's why we have a pre-treatment process to put the burden of doing that on the industrial users that through physical or chemical methods. Good question. Any other questions on that? The whole effluent toxicity testing. This is something that in the past we've had to do for acute and chronic on a quarterly basis, if I remember correctly. That is now reduced to where now we only have to do this on an annual basis. So a win, how about that? We got that. And then finally, the PAA. So as soon as we get the permit to place in operation for our system down here, we will be in a position to put the peracetic acid system into use. We're gonna be a little while away from being able to do that because we've got chemical already on site that we've paid for, so while it still has potency, we want to go ahead and use that up instead of just wasting the money or paying somebody to come in here and pump it out and haul it off. But as part of that, we have to do corbicula testing, which a corbicula is a clam. So they basically come and they mine the native clams, take some clams out of the stream, and then test upstream and downstream to make sure that there is no damage being done, when you do compare that ambient to the ambient level once it discharged. We don't anticipate any problems, but we have to do this, and this isn't anything unique to us. This has been a requirement for others that have put this system online in the state as well. But it has to be done once a quarter for 2 years. And then there's a reopener in the permit that would allow us, if everything goes well, to go to once per year sampling for it. So those are all the items that we have with the NPDES permit. Any questions about that or the spill? Those are all the environmental items that I had.
So I'm sure some of you folks know a lot more about this than I, but clams in our waterway?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Freshwater clams.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. You may have seen them, like if you go to the lake, sometimes you'll see the little black shells.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Same.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, the same type of thing.
I wouldn't eat
They
it.
taste horrible.
Wouldn't eat it.
Don't worry.
So the second thing I have is a cancellation of project number 2026-02. So this is something that we had, and it was in the budget, the approved budget, that would allow us to go out and replace a number of valves, motors, and pumps that we have in the plant, with the hopes to, if not fully, get us back to where we are fully capable of operating at the 7.8 million gallons per day level. So we're pretty excited about that. But then we got hit with something that we weren't expecting. We lost the upper and lower drives on our final clarifier number 3. This was an unexpected item. So we need to keep 2 of these 3 online all the time. So with this being out, it leaves us no room for error. So what Johnny, who is our plant operations supervisor, and Kyle, through their discussion, they didn't feel comfortable trying to put this off another year, so they recommended to me, which I supported, canceling that bid project that we had and rediverting those funds, because this should fall within the budgeted amount anyways, to rehabilitating that final clarifier. So this was an item we were going to look at doing next year anyways. So in worst case scenario, they basically would just be switching years. Best case is we're able to do it and then still have funds left over to at least do parts of what we wanted to do with that project that was out for bid. And it may be that as we move later in the year, we might look at possibly looking at using some contingency funds to do even more of that. But as of right now, that was what we did. So we went through the procurement code, followed what we were required to do for the cancellation of that bid project, and that has been completed. Any questions on?
Mr. Chair, were you at the bid collection point yet? Had you advertised it? Where were you in the process?
We had advertised it, but we had yet to receive any bids. So we had sent out, and it was a mandatory pre-bid meeting, so we knew the firms or the contractors that were going to be eligible to submit for this. So they were able to be notified several days in advance of them providing the bids to us. And we received no bids. If we did receive a bid, we're not going to open them anyways, and would return them, but we didn't receive any bids, so we were able to call that off before.
And you've already notified each of the attendees at the mandatory pre-bid?
Yes, sir. They've all been notified by email, and we also placed an ad back on Skibo notifying of the cancellation of that.
I was gonna see if it's worth the discussion of a budget amendment to do both. I mean,
Well,
But if you've already canceled the process fully, then
yeah, and we want to wait and find out because, you know, we have with the projects and contingency fund, we're going to have a lot of expenses that are going to be reimbursable, but nonetheless, we have to have money in the fund to be able to pay out before we're eligible to get reimbursement for this rehabilitation contract because, you know, we're expecting 7-figure invoices from them fairly soon. So once we make that determination that we're able to cover those with cash on hand before reimbursement, then, you know, we may come back later on and look at amending the budget and go back out with that. So we do have a plan in place. Any other questions about it?
Yeah, the drives that failed on the clarifier, are those mechanical or electric drives?
That I'll have to ask
Oh,
Kyle
okay.
about.
Okay.
Because it was, all that took place when I was out of the office. While I'm remote, I'm trying to have to handle
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
that
I
in
was just
Skivo.
curious.
So I'm just taking the information they provided to me and just working to cancel that to get that off the table. And then miscellaneous, I've got a couple things there. So, something that we became aware of, I guess this was, a couple of weeks ago, and it has to do, and I don't even know how we even came about it, but we determined or were able to identify that a couple of items that we have in our South Carolina Department of Archives and History records retention policy that the board had voted on accepting back a number of years ago, some of that information is incorrect from the standpoint of medical records and exposure records, maybe? Or just the medical
Just
records?
medical records.
So the current policy that we have, you know, this again is issued by the state, says that we have to maintain those, is it for 3 years, I believe?
Yeah.
3 years. Well, when we got to looking at it, medical records are required to be maintained by OSHA for 30 years post termination, correct? Does that sound right?
Yes.
So we're gonna have to go back before the Archives and History and have that amended for us. I don't know if they left out a 0 after the 3, and that's why it says 3 years instead of 30 years. But that'll be something that we're gonna have to go back and look at doing. So in the coming months, there'll be something brought back before the board with that amendment to that policy. Questions on that?
What kind of medical data are you talking about?
So we have some employees that are required, well, I guess for one, like hepatitis B vaccinations. If employees, you know, we're required to offer them that vaccination.
Oh, okay.
So that would be something that they do, well, even if they don't elect to, because they have to state that they do not want to take it, correct?
Yeah.
So that would be an example of a record. Fit testing for respirators. You know, with me being one of the ones that is qualified to be fit, you know, there's a physical part of that as well as a fit testing part of that. So those types of records would have to be maintained for 30 years. Those are a couple of good examples.
And the lawyer also told us doctor's notes, if the doctor's note specifically states a condition, that's considered a medical record.
During employment?
Yeah,
Okay.
like if a doctor's note says they're out of work because of some kind of condition, that's considered a medical record.
Thank you.
And then lastly, Mr. Bronson touched on it a few minutes ago. I wanted to congratulate you, Norm, on a job well done. I'll miss seeing you around here. Got a little card for you. And wish you well, and we'll need to go sometime and talk some baseball.
Absolutely.
Norm, let me give you some advice, being probably the only other retired member of this board. Come up with fake meetings real quick before your wife starts giving you a honeydew. I've got to go to this meeting.
That's a good point.
And it's on the record.
Exactly right. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good knowing you, buddy.
That's all.
That's all you have? All right, thank you. Moving on to item J, Commissioners' Discussion. Anyone have anything they'd like to bring up, talk about? Advice you want to give for longevity in marriage like Mr. Dial. All right, hearing none, we'll move on to item K, adjourn. Motion?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right.
I'd like to
We're
say,
adjourned.
one of the good